Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Today the weather is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we have with us His Grace Ambarish Prabhu and Her Grace Swaha Mataji. Like whatever introduction we prepare or we give for His Grace Ambarish Prabhu is always short, and we all know that what are many of the contributions are different contributions given by His Grace Ambarish Prabhu, and the world knows Prabhuji as the name of Alfred Ford, but we all know him as Ambarish Prabhu. And as we know, he has a big part in Sridham Mayapur, TOVP, and all the big services. He has sponsored many of the services in the temple. Most of the services in the TOVP construction has been served by His Grace Ambarish Prabhu. And recently, as His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaja's Samadhi, which has to be constructed, is also sponsored by His Grace Ambarish Prabhu. And Ambarish Prabhu's good wife is Her Grace Swaha Mataji. So I would give a small brief intro about her as well. She was initiated by Bhavananda Swami Maharaj in Australia, and missed Srila Prabhupada's last visit to Melbourne by a few years. But she feels totally connected with Srila Prabhupada through dreams and mainly through her service to the TOVP, as well as with her good husband, His Grace Ambarish Prabhu. So we greet them by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and welcome for today's evening session. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, so you can hear me? The volume is good?
Yes, Prabhuji.
It's okay? Yeah, okay. Anyway, Dandavat Namam Vishnu Padaya Kursavastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Jamane Namaste Saraswati Vagravani Vicharane Nirvisesa Sandhimati Paschidad. So if I'm not mistaken, most of the audience is in Ujjain many of the devotees that are there in Ujjain. So I remember being in Ujjain for the opening with Maharaj, with Bhakti Charu Swami, and all the wonderful devotees that are there. And unfortunately, we can't be there in person during this time, but I just want you to know that we're thinking about you, and we offer our deepest respects and love, and wish you all the best for pulling through this. I know that you all will. I was thinking the other day that when Srila Prabhupada left, there was some chaos afterwards for quite a few years. But fortunately, that has pretty much been resolved by the GBC and ISKCON management over the years, so that now, according to also the desire of your Guru Maharaj, ISKCON is very strong and can weather pretty much any storm. So you're fortunate you can take shelter of ISKCON and take shelter of the many senior devotees that are part of the part of ISKCON. So I was asked if I could give just a brief summary of how I became a devotee. And like many hippies during the 1960s, I was looking for answers to big questions that I had, and I wasn't finding them in my own Christian religion or my church or philosophical classes that I took at college or anything. But when I read Srila Prabhupada's little paperback books, Rajavidya, The King of Knowledge, and Easy Journey to Other Planets, something within those books clicked very deeply in me. And I decided that this was a path. He answered all the questions that I had. So I adopted Krishna consciousness in the early 70s, 73, 74. And I was fortunate enough in 1974, I flew to Dallas with a friend who was initiated, Atulananda, to meet Srila Prabhupada. And it was in the Gurukula, so I met Srila Prabhupada. And I offered my obeisances. And as I was getting up from offering my obeisances, Srila Prabhupada said, "So, you are Henry Ford's great-grandson?" And I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." And then he said, "So, where is he now?" So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because I realized that, somebody who was so famous and so wealthy, but who knew where he was at that point? I was pretty sure that he didn't go back to Godhead. But anyway, it really put me on the spiritual platform. So, and then from that, the next year, the following year, I was asked to buy the temple in Hawaii, which I did. And whenever Srila Prabhupada would come to Hawaii, he would write to me ahead of time and said, "Please meet me there." So I met with him for a year, 74, 75. And in June of 75, I asked Sridhar Das, Srila Prabhupada, if I could become initiated. And I didn't really think of whether I was really qualified or not, but I knew that something really wonderful was going on. Srila Prabhupada was the most amazing personality that I had ever met. And so I wanted to be part of whatever he was doing. So Srila Prabhupada, in his mercy, accepted me as a disciple, gave me the name of Ambarish Das. And then I went back to Detroit to help work on the new temple that we had purchased in Detroit, Devasadan Mandir. Beautiful mansion. Srila Prabhupada really loved it. We went to look at it before we bought it. And so I went back to work with Govardhan, the temple president, to try to bring the house up to the standard where Srila Prabhupada could visit, which he did in 1976. So then I had been to India at the end of 1975, and I got very sick. I was there with Giriraj Swami. We were going around trying to make life members. I had a very hard time in India because it's much different now. It was very difficult back then. So I didn't go back until the early 80s, you know. So then Srila Prabhupada left in 77. I saw him one more time in Detroit, 76. He seemed very, very happy with what we had done with Deva Siddhan. We'd moved the deities in, we refurbished all the common rooms, the restaurant, everything like that. So he was very happy with all that. And so I didn't go back to India when Srila Prabhupada ended his pastimes here. So I wasn't there during that time. But during the trip that Srila Prabhupada made to Detroit in 1976 was when he was talking about Mayapur and the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. So he finished speaking and he turned to me and he said, "So, what do you think of this idea?" And he described all about the planetarium and presenting the Vedic view of the universe and education and all that. And I said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, sounds like a really wonderful idea," even though I had never been to Mayapur. So, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, so you are liking this idea too, so you can finance." So we all had a big laugh because that it was just finishing the Detroit temple. So, but I realized later that in that meeting, Srila Prabhupada had planted the seed for the TOVP deep within my heart. And it took many decades for it to fructify. Finally, in around 2005, 2006, we got permission for the GBC, and so we've been working on that project ever since then. And many people wonder, now that your Guru Maharaj has left, how do you keep in contact with him? And my feeling as far as Srila Prabhupada goes is that I never feel that I'm separated from him because of the instructions that he gave me, not only the TOVP, but other instructions. He gave me, I have letters with different projects that he wanted me to be involved in. So he gave me several lifetimes of service to do. So I never really feel separated from him. He's always there in his instructions and his guidance. And I'm sure that the same will be true for you with Bhakti Charu Swami. The first time I met Bhakti Charu Swami was in San Francisco in the early 80s. And after Prabhupada left in 77, there was chaos in ISKCON. And many people were leaving and they were starting separate societies. So I had gone out to San Francisco to stay with a Trey Rishi to be part of his Bhaktivedanta fellowship. So Maharaj came out there to talk to Trey Rishi and ask him, please don't leave ISKCON, stay with Prabhupada. And that was his message throughout his whole lifetime, is to make ISKCON stronger, stay with Prabhupada, up until the very end. That was his mission. So you all are very fortunate that you have a very, very clear mission that your Guru Maharaj has given to you. And you should feel very confident that this is the best path you could possibly be on. So anyway, that was the first time that I met Maharaj. And then subsequently, we became close because I was going to Mayapur more and more. And he was, whenever he would come there, he would ask my wife and I to come for prasadam up to his room. He was always very gracious to us. And then also when he would come to Alachua, to the temple there, we would make sure that we would ask him over, and my wife would cook very nice, huge feast of Bengali prasadam. So he was very, 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 very happy about that. So we became closer also because the TOVP, Maharaj was very, very supportive of the TOVP. Whenever he could, he would give a donation. From either one of his supporters or whatever. He sacrificed his own plans to help us with the TOVP. So I'm always in debt to him. He was always very sweet to me and very happy to get involved with the TOVP. So I'm very, very grateful. He understood the importance of the TOVP to Srila Prabhupada. So he was willing to step up to the plate. As a matter of fact, this spring, Rajavilas Prabhu and myself and Bhakti Charu Swami were supposed to be traveling around the United States to visit different temples to help reminded the devotees how much we were depending on their pledges that they made and that if they could please fulfill their pledges. So unfortunately, Krishna has his plans, which are very often bewildering, but still he's, he's Krishna. He's the supreme controller and, the proprietor of everything, and he can do whatever he wants. So we may not understand that now anyway, why Krishna has taken Bhakti Charu Swami away from us. He was so important. He had such a calm presence and voice within our society. We all depended upon him, and he was very, very soft-hearted. So I will miss him so much because, I love doing service with him and love seeing him. He was always so graceful. I was remembering the other day that when we would go up to his apartment for lunch, we would go in and we would sit in the entry room there. And Maharaj would come in and it didn't even look like he was touching the ground. He was kind of gliding. So he was a very transcendental personality and I loved him very much. And so I'll turn it over to my wife now, and I'll come back. Yeah, I'll come back a little bit later. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay.
Is it a little longer?
Now you go.
Namo Jaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you very much for this opportunity to come together and glorify Maharaj and share our remembrances to heal our hearts from the pain of the separation from the sudden departure of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada is so kind that he has given us this most valuable association of devotees that we can help each other from the unfathomable and unbearable sorrow from the loss of someone so dear to everyone as Maharaj. We all know that Maharaj left on the very auspicious day of Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj's divine disappearance. And also it was the Guru Purnima day, which is celebrated as Vyasadev's appearance day. And Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj proclaimed that the Srimad Bhagavatam was his dearmost friend. And Srila Vyasadeva, of course, compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I feel that we cannot go wrong by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada's words from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this will be very pleasing to Maharaj as well. I found so much solace from reading about Bhishma Dev's passing away in the 9th chapter of the 1st canto. And Srila Prabhupada gives some very long purports expounding on many important verses. Due to time constraints and my limited understanding, I just selected a few. So reading from the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:9-16, spoken by Bhishma Dev to Maharaj Yudhishthir. O King, no one can know the plan of the Lord Sri Krishna. Even though the great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport how Krishna's plans are the cause of bewilderment, even to great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So it's quite expected that we will sometimes be bewildered. And as my husband said, that Krishna is Swarat, he is independent, he is the supreme controller. So we don't know, and we can, it's okay, I feel, to feel a little bewildered. But rest assured that Krishna is always acting to reciprocate with his devotees' love. And even though in the case of the Pandavas, it appeared that they had undergone untold sufferings, it'll certainly take us all time to realize this about losing Maharaj so abruptly. But by taking shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam as taught by Srila Prabhupada, and by following the instructions of Maharaj, as all the senior Vaishnavas have advised us, we will certainly please him and feel his presence. Referring to Bhishma Dev's imparting valuable instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthir while lying on a bed of arrows, in his purport to verse 25, Srila Prabhupada writes, his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstance, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. It's very prophetic because this is the first canto, and Srila Prabhupada was translating the 10th canto right up till the point of his glorious departure. Srila Prabhupada was speaking his Bhaktivedanta purports without having any food or drink over a long period of time. And this is most reassuring, the message of the Bhagavatam, because whether lying on a bed of arrows, as in the case of Bhishma Dev, or Srila Prabhupada without food or drink, or as Maharaj on a hospital bed, a pure devotee is always sound in body and mind. What is especially glorious, that even in his departing from this world, Maharaj engaged so many people in his service, creating their Bhakti Unmukhi Shukriti, making it possible to enter into devotional service sometime in their lives. From the hospital staff to the attendants at the funeral home, and all the people who made it possible for Maharaj's Vapu journey back to Mayapur, countless people paid their respects and offered service in various capacities. We read how the Chief Minister of Bengal, Srimati Mamata Banerjee, glorified Maharaj and posted her message honoring Maharaj. A book can be written about his Antya Leela, how he had the whole world of ISKCON devotees chanting and praying. We spent those days buoyed by some good news and other days in utter anxiety, but never despair, because we were very hopeful that he would recover. How could Maharaj leave before the opening of the TOVP, for which he sacrificed so much of his life? In this connection, I wrote in my offering to Maharaj, had I known about your 212 Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada, I would have certainly pleaded, implored, and begged you to please stay until the opening of the TOVP. Of course, I'm a tiny, insignificant jiva, unable to understand Lord Krishna's plan or fully appreciate your longing to be with your beloved spiritual master. I'm reminded of the incident Maharaj describes where he had completed his service of taking care of Srila Prabhupada's correspondence, but he lingered on to get more association of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was getting his massage. So Srila Prabhupada looked directly at him, and he said, just give this one life for Krishna. And Maharaj carried out this order in such an exemplary way by giving his life to love, to serve, and to protect ISKCON and all the devotees. To help us process the grief when we first heard of this sad news, we both started to write our offerings to Maharaj. And the comparison with Bhishma Dev appeared spontaneously in my heart. And so I wrote, I feel you were wounded in battle as one of the bravest generals in our Senapati Acharya, Srila Prabhupada's army, who chose to fight on the front lines despite all the risks. And like Bhishma Dev, lying on a bed of arrows, you endured the hospital stay until it was the most glorious day of Guru Purnima and Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj's disappearance day, that Srila Prabhupada and Krishna called you back to the spiritual world within their loving embrace. I will try not to repeat what I've written in my offering to Maharaj because our offerings have been posted on the TOVP website, but I'll speak of some of the things I didn't mention there. The last time I saw Maharaj was during our last trip to Mayapur in February of this year. Maharaj had traveled from Australia, all the way from Australia, and despite health challenges, he came to lead the Pushpanjali ceremony of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj's divine appearance. That was also the auspicious day of the Pujari floor opening, and Maharaj offered the first aratik with so many of us to the small Sri Radha deities that were carried to each of the rooms. And then I saw Maharaj for the very last time at the GBC meeting for my very short presentation for the TOVP. I could sense that Maharaj was not in the best of health, and I wrote to him, thanking him for coming to the celebration of the Pujari floor opening. And his usual humble way, he wrote back saying he wouldn't miss it at any cost. In contrast to 2020, we were celebrating the chakra installation in 2018, and Maharaj was in radiant health and spirits, and he spoke most inspiringly and raised the victory flag as well as performing Abhishek for the chakras. I remember walking into the Conch building with my husband, and a devotee asked me to speak with some Bengali reporters. So I did that, but by the time I finished, Prabhu had already left to see the installation of the chakra on top of Lord Narsinghdev's temple dome. So when I walked out to head that way, I saw Maharaj coming from the opposite side and with some of the devotees, and he said that they were going to watch the installation from the other side to get a better view. And so I joined him. This was a very informal, with very few devotees. They got us some chairs, and the Bengali reporters asked Maharaj some questions, and he spoke with them. And then he smiled, looking at me, excuse me, telling the reporters they should ask me, they should speak with me. I had the good sense not to open my mouth in front of Maharaj. And they too acknowledged that they had already spoken with me previously. So then some pictures were taken, and we saw the wonderful installation of the chakra on the Narsinghadev dome. And it was the perfect ending to a very glorious day of celebration. There are so many memories of seeing Maharaj in Mayapur. Just as my husband mentioned, he was always so welcoming and warm. I can't count how many times we have honored Prasad at Maharaj's apartment. Sometimes with many senior Vaishnavas, like during the Panchatattva installation and I think Samadhi opening, and sometimes with just our family. I've spoken about how extremely attentive he was to everyone. A few years back, I was in the temple room offering ghee lamps to the deities during Kartik. And when I got in front of Lord Nrsingadev, I saw Maharaj coming from the other side, and I tried to avoid eye contact with him because I didn't know where to put my ghee lamps so that I could greet him with folded hands. And Maharaj so naturally just walked up to me and said, "Hare Krishna, Swaha, nice to see you." So he put me at ease, and I felt so embarrassed that I was trying to avoid his glance. We have been listening about Maharaj from constantly this past week or more, and we found out how he was so instrumental in saving New Mayapur. And we were very fortunate that we were able to assist Maharaj in a very small way in this very important service of saving Srila Prabhupada's temples. Prabhu and Maharaj have always been united in serving the TOVP from way back when. Like, this is going back many years, maybe 20. Maharaj making arrangements for us to meet some of the most influential people in Kolkata. He was the perfect ambassador of ISKCON due to his exemplary character. And even though he was mild-mannered and somewhat shy, his grace and purity of purpose always charmed and persuaded people. He was always treated with so much respect and love by them. Maharaj's support for the TOVP has always been unwavering. How much time do we have for any pastimes?
It's a lot of questions.
Oh, okay. I can speak about my prasadam pastimes after Prabhu can answer some questions. So I'll just end with any glorification of Maharaj would be incomplete and not pleasing to him if we fail to glorify his God brothers and sisters who have been so forthcoming and supportive. Their association is the most valuable treasure in ISKCON, and we are most fortunate to have their shelter. And last but not least, all of you disciples of Maharaj who have carried out the last rites of placing Maharaj's Vapu in Samadhi under such difficult circumstances with such grace and honor. You are representing Maharaj in a way that is most pleasing and befitting him. Although it has been a great loss for ISKCON and the worldwide community of devotees such as ourselves, but it cannot be compared to the pain that you are suffering, which is exponentially incalculable. Please know that we share in your grief and sorrow, and we'll do our best to try to alleviate some of your pain in any way we possibly can. Thank you again. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you very much, Mataji and Prabhuji. Yes, we have quite a few questions, and out of those, like mostly 4 or 5 questions are requesting that Prabhuji, it's a request to Prabhuji that his life before coming to Krishna consciousness and after coming to Krishna consciousness.
Okay, all right. Well, I had a devotee friend of mine in Detroit, Brajendra Lal, who said to me once, your life when you were born, it must have been like being in the heavenly planets. And I guess from a material standpoint, it was. We had 4 different houses, completely furnished with servants and everything. And we would just go from, take a private plane, one home to another, all year long. But my problem was that I could see that even though people had everything and more than everything, they weren't necessarily happy. So my conclusion was there's something missing that nobody is talking about. So I put upon myself to go out and do some search for what that was missing. And that's how I ended up at college studying different systems of spirituality. And none of it ever made sense until I read Srila Prabhupada's books. Now, it says, Krishna says that one who doesn't complete his yogic path can take birth either in a pious family or in the family of a aristocratic, wealthy family. So I think that I had some introduction to Krishna consciousness from a previous lifetime. Even before I met Srila Prabhupada or read any books about Krishna consciousness, my first exposure was the London album produced by George Harrison. And when I put it on in my apartment at college and played the Govinda prayers that we all listened to every morning, I immediately started crying. Something touched me very, very deeply. So there was something there that was already there. And I was a hippie, so I kind of rejected the materialism. And I could see that what I grew up with was lacking some substantial parts. So I was really ready and ripe to become a devotee. And, I went through a lot of problems with various members of my family. But as Srila Prabhupada told Brahmananda, who was complaining that his father used to beat him, and Srila Prabhupada said, well, whatever got you here. So that's the way I feel. Whatever got me to Krishna consciousness is the Lord's mercy and Prabhupada's mercy. So I was able to come and able to stay and do service and went through many ups and downs over the years. Things have been much better since I got married to Swaha Devi because she's like a rock, So I depend on her a lot. She's very cultured. And so that was basically what my life was like before. And afterwards, I'm one of these people, I'm not a scholar and I'm not a book distributor and I'm not, a kirtan leader, but I can do service to Prabhupada. And like we sing every morning, Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasado, by serving the pure devotee, the Acharya, we become, we can become self-realized just by serving him in a very simple way. So that's what I'd modeled my life after taking initiation, was to try to serve Srila Prabhupada, to make him as happy as I possibly could. In Hawaii, I purchased the temple there, and Prabhupada would come there every year. And it was kind of off the beaten track in Hawaii. So it was very quiet for him. And it was a nice, very nice environment. And it was peaceful. And he was able to do a lot of translating there. A lot of the Chaitanya Charitamrita was translated there. So I knew that he was very happy there. And also in Detroit. Detroit used to be a very, very important city. It still is to a certain degree, but not what it was. And so we opened up this beautiful temple there, and Srila Prabhupada was very, very pleased. And when we had the official opening, even though Prabhupada was not there personally, it was the biggest media event that we've ever had in ISKCON up to that point. Because I was there, the daughter of the famous labor leader was there. And, so it was a big event in Detroit, and we had reporters that came from all over the country to be there. So I'm sure Srila Prabhupada was very happy about that. And then, of course, I tried to, in my own mind, and also by the instructions given to me by Srila Prabhupada, what was very important to him. And this was confirmed by Giriraj Maharaj. He asked Srila Prabhupada point blank, I've been thinking, and I think these two things are the most important to you, your books and the temple in Mayapur. And Prabhupada smiled at him and said, yes, you have understood. So, the books are in very good hands. They're being produced and distributed by very wonderful devotees all over the world. So this temple in Mayapur, I've taken it as my life's mission for the rest of my life. Of course, everything's been put on hold because of this pandemic, but I see it as just, another challenge. We face challenges all through the whole process. So it's another challenge, and we just have to be patient, and then we can start moving forward again. So I'm very happy about that. And somebody asked if Bhakti Charu Swami had gone on tour with you, what would his message have been? And I think his message would have been, I'm pretty sure, that this TLVP project was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. He especially talked about it often during the last 2 or 3 years of his pastimes here on earth. So it was very important to him, and that we should all join in and try to push it forward, because it was what Srila Prabhupada desires. Not only Srila Prabhupada, but the previous Acharya was very important for ISKCON, very important for Krishna consciousness to spread. And you can see that Kali Yuga is rapidly, exhibiting her powers, or his powers, or whatever. In Kali Yuga is going on very strongly now, more and more every year. So it's up to us, every devotee, every disciple of Prabhupada, every grand disciple, every great grand disciple, to get this temple open. Janani Vas tells me that from the, he quotes his scripture from this temple. What is that?
এক অদ্ভুত মন্দির হইবে প্রকাশ,
Yeah.
গৌরাঙ্গের নিত্য লীলা হইবে বিকাশ. So the service of Gauranga Mahaprabhu
will flow from
flood
this,
the whole world.
flood the whole world from this temple. So it's very important to get it open, and I'm dedicating whatever life I have left to getting this temple open. My wife is right beside me, and she's putting a lot of time and effort into it. So I hope that answers some of the questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the elaborating about your life in Krishna consciousness. So the next question is from one Mataji. She's asking, were His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami still present to participate in the TOVP tour of North America What message do you believe Maharaj would be putting across?
Yes,
You just answered.
I think I just
Answered.
mentioned that, that this temple was very important to Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, and that we should all get involved in trying to fulfill Prabhupada's desires. Because Maharaj was so attached to Srila Prabhupada. There was no doubt in my mind that he was, very close to Prabhupada and very attached to him. So I'm sure that's what he would have said because he understood how important it was.
If I could just add to it that the reason also why it was so important to Srila Prabhupada, because he mentioned one time at a Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj's appearance that I can't remember if it was disappearance or appearance. It's the same for a spiritual personality, even though right now we are feeling the pain of separation, but in time, he mentioned how tears came in Srila Prabhupada's eyes as he thanked the few devotees that were there, and he folded his hands and he, with tears in his eyes, he said, "Thank you for helping me build this temple," because it was very, very important, Srila Prabhupada. He laid the foundation stone for the TOVP with his own lotus hands. And at the very spot where it's built now, because it didn't happen for so many years because we were trying to build it on some other land. So Prabhupada is fully in charge. He's overseeing the construction from his Samadhi building. And Ravindra Swarup Prabhu has written a very beautiful paper explaining how the spiritual master is so connected with his disciple. And Srila Prabhupada was the most exemplary disciple of his spiritual master. And another thing I could mention was I just recently read about this lecture in 1972. It was given on March of 1972 in a gathering in Mayapur where Puri Maharaj, who was a god brother of Srila Prabhupada. So this is not just important for our ISKCON, but I'm trying to express how it's beyond ISKCON. We are fulfilling the desires of our previous acharyas and for the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So Puri Maharaj was speaking with such emotion because Prabhupada was there with his Western disciples. It was 1972. And he said, he glorified Srila Prabhupada, that how this great personality has been able to take the message of Mahaprabhu to the Western world. And then he has brought these wonderful disciples. He was not only glorifying Srila Prabhupada, but all his disciples. He said they are so determined and strict about following Srila Prabhupada's orders. And they're always chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in service. And then he mentioned the TOVP. He said, and Maharaj, and is referring to Srila Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada and his disciples are going to build this big temple of Mahaprabhu, from where the mercy of Mahaprabhu will flow everywhere in this planet. So Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, understood all this. He had such close connection with Srila Prabhupada, with the Gauriya Math. He understood the mind of the previous acharyas, the heart's desire of Srila Prabhupada. And this is one very unique offering which will be there for the next 10,000 years. We don't understand what 10,000 years look like, but I feel there are impediments in building this temple because it's such a force against Kali, because Krishna consciousness will just take over. So as Srila Prabhupada taught us not to be deterred in our determination to fulfill his desire, no matter how many challenges come. What, you want me to speak about my cooking pastime? That way?
Yeah, you can do that and then ask for any other questions.
Okay, so Prabhuji, is this a good time where you want me to speak a little bit about Maharaj's taking prasadam at our house, or you have some?
Sure, Mataji, you can share.
Okay, so I think I sent one picture. The last time he came to my home was in March of 2018. And he drove up from DeLand. And there is a couple of pictures of Maharaj taking honoring prasadam at our home. And there is another one where he's smiling. And at that same visit, his disciple, these pictures were taken by his disciple, Damodar Prasad. And Maharaj also, there Maharaj is smiling, I like that picture. And Maharaj was showing me how to cook a prep. So there's a short video of it. And Maharaj is showing me how to cook in my kitchen. And I treasure those moments with such, such fondness that Maharaj was very, very sweet, loving, and kind to me. There he is, making his favorite preps. And then in Maharaj, the last time I cooked for him was in 19.
What?
You can take Krishna's dishes out. We know how many items there are and that many dishes, huh?
Well, if I had 4 arms, I could
Okay,
make this
all right.
movie.
No, I'm doing. Oh, that's hilarious. But it's such a nice memory. With Maharaj, it was always just so much love. And so anyway, I was saying that in 2019, Govardhan Puja of 2019, Maharaj attended it in Alachua temple. And he gave a wonderful class on Govardhan Puja. And due to his deep love for him and affection for me, he spoke about the TOVP fundraiser we had in Kolkata temple. And I mentioned in my offering to Maharaj how he was really suffering from shingles, but he didn't let it show. He stayed for the whole program. But what he mentioned in class was that we were giving hugs with so much love. Everyone, all the devotees in India were really appreciating us, because in the West, giving hugs is very common. But anyway, Maharaj just loved every little thing, and we loved every little gesture of Maharaj. So anyway, the same day he was going to take prasadam at Pravir Prabhu and Sri Gaurangi Mataji's house, because it's close to the temple. And so I wanted, and his disciples were cooking for him, but I wanted to bring a preparation. So I wanted to make this gur, Bengali special gur paesh with the date gur. And so the day before, we came back from the Sunday feast program, and after honoring prasadam, I thought, if I'm making just one prep, I want to put my heart and soul and a lot of bhakti into it. So I walked to the supermarket to do some austerity instead of driving there. And then I carried the gallon of milk. And then the next day, of course, was Govardhan Puja. So we were at the temple from, Mangalarati. And we came back a little late because there was Abhishek. So anyway, as soon as I got back, I just dropped everything and started cooking the paesh. And you cannot rush something like that. You keep stirring and it'll take its own sweet time. But we were eager to go to see Maharaj, because Maharaj had given us a time to be there. So anyway, my husband's always very helpful. He bought a bag of ice And I managed to cool the payesh, and Maharaj must have just tasted my love and devotion, because he was so sweet and generous. And he said, "Oh, this is very nice." And he thanked me for it. And there's, what I'll miss most is, like, just with the informal chats that we had with Maharaj. Like, he would be coming down from his apartment and we were just one floor down. So we would run into him and he just talked. And one time I'd taken some good rasagullas that the Bengali devotee had given me, a nice big container of it. So I took it to his kitchen. And then when he was coming down the stairs, I asked Maharaj, I said, "Did you like the rasagullas?" And he said, "Oh, they were very good. Did you make them?" He was kind of smiling because he knew I hadn't made them in Mayapur. But I'm hoping that we are going to keep Maharaj's mood of cooking and feeding the devotees, and his apartment will still keep this mood alive. And if I can serve in any small way, I would be so happy, even though I'm not an expert cook, but I would be so happy. Oh, more questions? Okay.
Well, we have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
And, Prabhu, any other questions?
Yes, Prabhuji, there are few.
Okay.
This devotee is asking, you mentioned how Guru Maharaj gave opportunity to everyone to participate in his last pastime. Can you please tell little about how he gave opportunity to both of you to participate in his last pastime? Your servant Prema Avatar.
Oh, Prema Avatar Prabhu, I think I sent you this letter from the Consul General of India. She was Miss Swati, I forget her last name, but she had written a letter thanking Mr. Gaikwar of the Motel Gita, and very nice disciple of Radhanath Swami, Nandini Kishore Dasi. She spearheads this campaign of Motel Gita, and she made connection with Mr. Gaikwar, who's a big force. He, for instance, she sent me this letter because I had a very, very small part to play in giving a small donation, but I so appreciate, because it made me realize how many people Maharaj involved. Like you're asking, I'll tell you a little more. So Mr. Gaikwar got involved because he has some influence, and he cleared all the custom and all the required notices were to clear the for Maharaj's Vapu journey back to Mayapur. And and the Consul General, obviously, from giving her permission. And then, in the hospital, all the doctors and whoever served him were so blessed. At the funeral home, all the attendants were blessed. Then when he came back, because we followed everything, that Maharaj, when he landed, how many people went to greet him when the plane landed? So many, many people. They were, Swati Kulkarni. So many people who would never get a chance to serve a Vaishnava, they got a chance to pay their respects and do some small service. And we know that how we come to devotional service, we gain entrance by performing some kind of bhakti unmukhi sukriti. So Maharaj engaged so many people. And then because the way he left, many people in the West, found out about it. And then the chief minister of Bengal, as I mentioned, Mamata Banerjee, he garnered respect from all people, whether they were highly placed or just simple folks, because Maharaj's personality was. So that's what I meant. I think he wants to say something.
Mara's most fond desire was to glorify Srila Prabhupada and unite ISKCON. And his illness, you know, the last 2 weeks of his sojourn on this planet, united ISKCON in a way we had never planned on it, but that's what happened because Maharaj had sown seeds of love all over the planet. So when he was in jeopardy, everybody was praying, and very, very sincerely. I, you know, had worked with Braja Vilas. We did so many pujas in Mayapur, Nrsimhadev pujas, et cetera, et cetera. So all these pujas and all this praying and everything really united. We didn't want to let him go. We did not want to let him go. You know, he was so important. But Krishna had other plans, and we have to let go. And I just want to tell his disciples, I know it's very painful now, you miss his Vapu, but by engaging in his service daily, you have Guru Puja every day, and you engage yourself in fulfilling his mission. Whatever part of it you can be involved in. And those two things, you know, offering your obeisances and Guru Puja
Yes.
and prayers, and then also working to try to fulfill his mission, those will keep you connected with him. And hopefully you'll be reunited with him when this time on this planet is finished. That is my hope with Srila Prabhupada. I know I have no qualifications personally. I'm not any sort of a pundit or anything, but my hope is that if I can humbly serve Srila Prabhupada, that he will be there to either give me a kick or welcome me to whatever. I'm happy to go wherever he wants to send me. It's my greatest pleasure to serve him. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. If you have some more time, then there are a few questions I can request.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Just 1 second. There is one devotee, Sivam Tiwari. Yes, he is asking, Prabhuji, we become astonished and overwhelmed by seeing your service to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, can you please enlighten and bless how one can remain so humble while offering so much great service to Srila Prabhupada?
I'll tell you a story. I don't even remember where it was, but I was somewhere raising money, some ISKCON temple. No, I'm sorry. This was in Nairobi. And Srila Prabhupada was in his room. I was out in the hall. Srila Prabhupada was in his room talking to Brahmananda, and I heard my name. And so I knew they were talking about me, and Brahmananda was saying, he this, he's that. And he's so humble. And so I was expecting Srila Prabhupada to say, yes, he's very humble. But what I heard Srila Prabhupada do was go, kind of like a, maybe. He didn't say anything, but just kind of gave a, so I made it my mission to try to be as humble as possible. The thing they say about humility is that if you think you have it, you don't. So, I know that I have no qualifications to be doing what I'm doing. To be a disciple of Prabhupada, I have no qualifications except for my love for him. So that's all.
You didn't mention the past time in Nairobi because that showed your humility, because Srila Prabhupada was giving class in Nairobi and he was speaking, not in India, sorry.
Yeah.
And he was speaking in Hindi. So my husband doesn't understand Hindi, but whenever Srila Prabhupada would mention his name, Srila Prabhupada would indicate like this for my husband to stand up, and my husband stood up. And then after Prabhupada spoke about him, Prabhupada would go like this. He would sit down. So he did this a few times. And so, you know, he knew he was a humble servant. And I think Prabhu gets also some of his humility from his very wonderful father. The three of us, his father, Maharaj, and myself, we are all Virgos. And I felt such closeness because I was like, my birthday is like 2 days after Maharaj. And I'm ever grateful to all the devotees in Durban who we were there for the TOVP function, and we got to celebrate. That's the only Vyasa Puja of Maharaj that we got to celebrate together with all the devotees. It was such a wonderful function. And then a couple of days later, we were going to our next stop to Cape Town. And we were going, I arrived at the airport, and because Braj Vilas Prabhu was carrying Lord Nityananda's paduka, which is much heavier than a cake. So he gave the cake to Jananivas Prabhu. So when Prabhu and I arrived at the queue, I saw Jananivas Prabhu carrying a cake, and I said, because I didn't know any idea that they knew it was my birthday. I said, what is this? And Braj Vilas smilingly said, and I said, don't tell everybody about my birthday, but he had already told them. So this wonderful devotees made a cake, and so I took it from, because I felt so bad, you know, that Jananivas Prabhu is carrying. So I took the cake. But the funny part of the story that I didn't write about is that we carried the cake all the way to Cape Town. Then we arrived, and all the devotees came to greet us at the airport. And we were supposed to go for prasadam to the Cape Town temple that night. We arrived like late afternoon. And so my husband and I thought we would give the cake to the devotees. And I think that was the best service we did, because I still hear it was the best cake. So whoever is listening.
She's never gotten over it, let me tell you.
And anyway, the story is that then the devotees went to Cape Town. And until we got there, we didn't know how far the temple was from the hotel we were staying. So a little bit later, Braj Vilas Prabhu called from the temple, and he said to Prabhu, it will take a devotee 1 hour to drive there and drive back, and it would take us the same amount of time if we took a taxi to 1 hour to the temple. So what did we want to do? So obviously, you know, we were tired from traveling, and so we said, okay, we will see you tomorrow. We will go to the program that was scheduled for Cape Town. So all the devotees got to have this wonderful cake. So I think my birthday was very.
Let me just interject one more thing. In that, you know, we at the TOVP office, because we have so much genuine affection we did for the TOVP, we decided that we wanted to help his disciples in Mayapur construct his samadhi. So Cushman Wakefield, who is an international project management company, is going to help make 3 different designs, and then the devotees will choose which one. And then we'll use a lot of the material that we have on the site to construct Maharaj's samadhi in Mayapur. We're really, really happy that we get to do that. And it's the very least we can do, a gesture out of our sincere love for Maharaj. And we'll miss him, his Vapu, so much. But he's made an impression in my heart that will be there forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this answer. There is one devotee from Bombay. His name is Manu Prabhu. He is asking, thank you for sharing your wonderful realization, and then you for your invaluable contribution to our lives and to the lives of many, many future generations to come. My question is that as we all move on to fulfill the dream of Srila Prabhupada, we would be needing more and more funds. And often this is a great cause of anxiety. Guru Maharaj wanted to create streams of finances. He would encourage devotees to raise themselves from Sudra position to at least uh, Vaishya position and create streams of finances to fund the projects. How do you see the future of ISKCON devotees in this context, and how can we become financially independent society? Thanks a lot, Prabhuji. Your servant Manudas.
Hare Krishna. Well, I don't know if Krishna wants us to be financially independent, and he talks about anxiety. Yes, there is anxiety, but what is devotional service without some anxiety? How much anxiety was Prabhupada in when he arrived in New York with $7 in his pocket? He didn't know anybody. He, didn't understand the culture of America back in 1965. So how much anxiety was he in? But he just kept moving forward. And, my feeling is that Krishna, wants us to become Krishna conscious. He wants us to come back to him. And even his associates in Vrindavan, if you read the pastimes, they were in so much anxiety. Every day was a different demon. So, yes, there is some anxiety involved about, how will we get money and this. But you look at the Catholic Church, they have so much money and they're a complete mess. Our job is not to be wealthy, a wealthy society. It's not. I don't think it is. We have many, many things that we want to do. And if it's Krishna's desire, he will provide the resources, but we have to ultimately depend on Krishna. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We express our heartfelt gratitude to your grace for enlightening us with one is how Guru Maharaj engaged all and gave opportunity to participate in his Antalila. Second was how he gave his life to love, serve, and protect devotees. Thirdly, it is quoted from Shastra how we can understand and overcome his departure. Then narrated personal interaction with him, and also how he fulfilled Srila Prabhupada's desire to unite ISKCON by his last pastime. He shown seed of love to everyone's heart. So we beg for your blessings to empower us so that we can follow these teachings and become loyal servants of spiritual master and serve in ISKCON whole life. Also, we humbly request your grace to please visit Ujjain with Mataji, which is
Thank
one
you,
of
Prabhu.
the most important project of our beloved Guru Maharaj.
Yes.
So we
Thank
thank
you.
you so much
We
by
thank you for inviting, because when Prabhu went for the opening, I was taking care of my ailing parents, so I couldn't go. So that's my heart's desire. So thank you so much for inviting. And if you, I don't know, something Prabhupada or Maharaj are inspiring, one last sentence, and is that the both of us, if there is one thing that, because you are disciples of Maharaj and we feel that, we can humbly suggest this thing, that we both listen to Srila Prabhupada's classes from Prabhupada Vani every day. And to hear Srila Prabhupada's voice, just as you hear Maharaj's, it's so purifying. And, when we say Srila Prabhupada spent gallons of blood for each one of us, it's not a cliche. In many of these lectures towards the later days, you can hear Srila Prabhupada coughing with a severe cold, and you can hear that he is not in good health. But Srila Prabhupada is soldiering on, giving his message to the audience that Krishna consciousness is the only solution to all the problems in life. And he was very topical. I mean, Srila Prabhupada spoke 40 years ago, and if even like a month or two back, I was listening to one of his lectures, and Srila Prabhupada is talking about how the WHO wastes so much funds, and they will never be able to help with any alleviation of disease from this world. And so Prabhupada, we need to repeatedly hear from him, to always remember his words, his message, because it's most purifying. And it reminds us that there are certain things that Prabhupada felt so strongly about animal slaughter, about, abortion, and so many things, that Nagaraj Prabhu is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Recently in a class, he mentioned all these things, because we tend to forget, because we are facing with so many things, issues. But we should also keep in touch and focus with what Srila Prabhupada was. And anyway, my Prabhu is telling me to shut up.
No.
Thank you, Prabhu, so much for your wonderful association. And we are most grateful. And we hope and pray that we can be of some humble service.
Yes.
And please, your Guru Maharaj,
Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. Ki jai.
Thank you very much, Mataji. In the end, again, you reminded us that how we should follow the Vani of our beloved Guru Maharaj, and follow his instruction by hearing again and again to him. And by hearing, we can remember what was his desire and how he wanted to serve Srila Prabhupada. So this guidance is really much helpful for us. Thank you very much, and we express our gratitude and thank by chanting one Hare Krishna mantra all together, loud and clear, by raising the hand. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama.
Hare. His Grace Ambarish Prabhu ki jai, Hare Grace Swaha Mataji ki jai, Jagat Guru Prabhupada ji ki jai.
Bhakti Charu Swami ki jai.
Ki jai. Thank you.